All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to bring to you a great panel of both finance professionals as well as people from the talent acquisition space to help you understand more about the different career paths that are available to you within the finance major at WVU and learn what you need to do throughout your college career in order to be successful. So my name is Sarah Glenn. I'm the Associate Director of the Center for Career Development. I'm also joined by my colleague, Kellen Smith, who is the director of our center. And so we're going to facilitate some questions and answers with the panelists throughout the next hour. But please feel free to put your own questions in the chat. We'll pause throughout the session to offer you the opportunity to ask your questions vocally. So please stay engaged with us. We have a really great, again, lineup of panelists who have vast advice and insights to share with you. So take advantage of this time by chiming in with your own questions. Okay. And most of you probably noticed we are recording the session for those students who weren't able to join us live today. All right, so we will go ahead and get started by asking our panelists to provide a brief background of their professional bio as well as an overview of what their current career entails. So we'll start with Jamie Sirachman.
Hi guys. So kind of brief background on myself. So I graduated West Virginia in 2014 with a bachelor's in science in the School of Business, specializing in finance. Couple minors, but mainly focused on finance and business and economics. I then went on to get a master's degree. Not at West Virginia, I'm sorry, but did get my master's degree immediately after graduating from West Virginia in finance. And then after that, I went to work for Wells Fargo Securities. I did equity research, covering the specialty finance stocks. Did that for about 2 years. And then I switched career gears a little bit and started doing more corporate finance, the financial planning and analysis, budgeting, forecasting, that type of role. I did that at a retail company in Columbus, Ohio for about 4 years. And actually starting March 1st, I transitioned to a real estate private equity firm called Rockbridge Capital. So I've been here about 2 weeks, again, in the FP&A world, forecasting, budgeting, reporting for the corporate entity. And so I can't speak too much about where I'm at now since I'm still pretty fresh. But obviously I've got several years of experience in the field, so I can field any questions.
Thank you. Coleman?
Hello, everyone. My name is Coleman Elchi. I graduated with a degree in sport management from West Virginia in 2013 with a minor in mathematics. Immediately after finishing that, I started graduate school from WVU and got my dual master's with my MBA and a master's of science and finance. Like I'm sure many of you on the call, wasn't completely sure what I wanted to do after finishing that up. Interviewed a few different places, including MVB, where I work now. But ultimately, out of school, I ended up going to the Baltimore, DC area and was a mortgage lender for a year. And after figuring out that that's not really what I wanted to do, I ended up kind of continuing conversations during my time over there with some people that I'd interviewed at MVB Bank, and ended up coming back primarily in a financial analyst position that would work on the budget process. Since then, I've just continued to advance in that career path and kind of expand to my current position where I'm the manager of financial planning and analysis for MVB Bank. And that basically entails still handling some of the budgeting process and the forecasting on that front, but also handling our capital modeling and everything that we're doing on that side, and then also the asset liability management model. So I kind of manage all of those different components and, kind of handle all of the forecasting that takes place for MVB.
Awesome. Thank you. Daisy?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deja Gatson. I'm one of the campus recruiters here at PNC. I did not attend West Virginia. I attended Hampton University and graduated with my bachelor's in business administration as well as my MBA, also from Hampton. Prior to starting in this role, I was actually in the HR development program. So definitely have a lot of space in that early career development. And, happy to support you all as I am the lead recruiter for West Virginia University. So definitely excited to, help you all kind of navigate and, figure out what your interests are and, go forward into our recruiting season next season. So 2021 to 22.
All right, thank you. And Ryan, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background and a little bit of an overview of your current career.
Sure, no problem. Sorry about that. I'm a little late here. But first of all, thanks for inviting me to be on the panel. It's great to connect back with West Virginia and the students, and hopefully we can help answer a lot of questions today. And feel free to throw anything at me as much as we can do to help. Or as I can do, I'm happy to do so. But my background really is I graduated from West Virginia in 2007 now, although it feels like it hasn't been that long at all. And I was actually a marketing major when I was in the business school at West Virginia. And towards the end of my undergrad, I kind of decided it was a little late because I was already in the marketing program and I enjoyed it. But I wanted to move into like the finance world. So, I started to do a little bit of networking and things like that and utilize what I could. And I took a job at Morgan Stanley in Baltimore when I graduated from West Virginia. It was an operations role in like an analyst class of maybe 40, 50 different students from different schools and backgrounds and things like that. And I worked at Morgan Stanley for probably 5 years, and I always wanted to. I'm originally from New York, not the city, more upstate, but I've always kind of wanted to work in New York City area. So I transferred at Morgan Stanley internally to the New York area, and I've been in this region ever since, New York City area, working in kind of more of a treasury liquidity function there for a couple of years during the Great Recession or whatever you want to call it in 2008, which was right after I graduated. I barely made it in before there was a hiring freeze across the country, but it was also eye-opening seeing all the turmoil it caused in the industry for sure. And from there, I accepted a job at AIG, which was who was actually a big part of the financial crisis. And at that point in time, they were trying to, we're talking 2013, 2012, somewhere in there. They were looking to basically clean up, divest a lot of their non-insurance businesses at that point in time. And they were named like basically a significantly important financial institution, which was the official name. And so because of that, they were going to be regulated by the Federal Reserve. So they wanted people with banking experience and that type of background to come in. So they had a number of different initiatives. And at this point, I was able to get a risk role, also in the liquidity risk kind of treasury space. But now I was in risk management at that point in time. And I worked there for a couple of years, 2.5 years about. And we accomplished a lot in that period of time. And similar to the New York thing, I always kind of wanted to work on the buy side in a like a hedge fund type of role. So something came up in 2014 at my current employer, Apollo Global Management. It's a big alternative asset manager. And I've been there. Yeah, I've been here since 2014. Worked in a lot of risk I was hired into the risk group there. Now not doing as much treasury, a lot of different things that I'm happy to talk about, but risk and compliance is my current kind of the departments that I work in. So I'm happy to dive into further things and who I work with and what we do, but hopefully that helps. Thanks.
All right, thank you all very much. Okay, so we're going to kick off the first formal question of the panel and address this to Deja, but any of the other panelists are welcome to chime in as well. So what are the primary skills and experiences you look for when you are hiring interns within your organization?
Sure. So I would say the biggest skill is really that communication piece now more than ever. Aside from the technical skills, of course, those are a given, based on whatever line of business you're interested in. But really that communication piece just puts you far beyond, the other candidates, when it comes to how you're able to communicate with others, if you're in different organizations, if you've already had some previous internship experiences, or either other, quote unquote, non-related work experience. Just being able to showcase those skills is really important. I know I get a lot of questions about students who, might not have that formal background and have already had a lot of training within, risk or in corporate finance or things of that nature. But you can easily get those skills, at least starting by, learning different things within your coursework, as well as, doing different things on your own. So, doing different trainings or learnings. There's a lot of different resources online. So, just really, honing in on those skills early on, even if it isn't, a formal training, I definitely think that can help as well. As, like I said, the communication and those other types of soft skills. One thing that I also say, especially within financial services, is, that customer service piece. Even if you are in a back office position, you still have a customer of some sort, whether that's internal or external. So for me, for instance, being in HR, I would say a lot of mine is kind of mixed. So my internal clients would be the businesses that I partner with to help support them in their programs. But you all, as the students and universities that I'm talking to, are my external clients. So really being able to connect in that way and provide the best experience to whoever you're talking to and connecting with as well is definitely something that is great to bring to the table too.
Great, thank you. Do any of the other panelists have anything to add to that?
I could jump in just a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Deja on the communication piece. If we're looking at hiring, candidates, and like she said, a lot of the technical skills might line up, or they can be learned, and it's kind of not easy, but you can kind of pull that out of a candidate that's interviewing for a job. But when it comes down to it, when people are sitting in the room across from you, they're thinking to themselves, can I work with this person? Can I work? I see my colleague, not right now in the pandemic, but very soon. And before that, I see my colleagues more than I see my own family often. So people think about, is this someone who I can work with? So believe it or not, there's a little chit chat sometimes in interviews about random things. I mean, I take all my Zoom meetings at work. I was just on one down here in my man cave, and people are always talking about West Virginia or what's going on with the Buffalo Bills, this or that. And, you need a human connection on top of the skills, but that doesn't mean that's the only thing that you're bringing to the table. You're not just going in there talking about like people's family and what they like, but it's good to show that human connection on top of everything. But not to undermine some of the technical skills that I think that are extremely important that people will ask and expect in terms of a lot of, you know, basic to intermediate, like Excel, you know, PowerPoint presentation, that type of stuff. I think that's obviously goes hand in hand. And then a lot of experiences, maybe we'll get into that in a little bit, but if you can correlate experiences with the communication and the skill set and tie them all together, even if it's you're new, coming out of school, then I think that that's a good selling point.
Okay, we will move into our next question now. And this might be a little bit more directed toward Brian or Jamie, just based on the type of industry that they're working in currently. Historically, it's been more challenging for entry-level professionals to obtain opportunities in certain financial firms or investment banks. Sometimes that's based on the technical skills required or prior work experience requirements. What are some things that you would suggest that students do at an early point in their college careers in order to increase their chances of landing a more competitive role in one of these types of organizations?
Yeah, I can kind of take that based on kind of my experience on getting into my first job with Wells Fargo. You know, for me, one of the biggest, you know, benefits that helped me get my foot in the door was honestly networking. You know, it was typically, you know, new grads don't get into the type of role that I was in. But given I was, you know, networking with my professors, I was at Ohio State at the time. I was networking with them. They were, you know, still in contact with some of their former students. And how it worked out was one of their former students was a managing director at Wells Fargo who was looking for an analyst. They had a tight budget, so they reached out to my professor. Was like, hey, what, you know, give me a handful of students to interview. And it was just because I'd made the connections with my professors, I had made the connections with, you know, other students, I was able to get that interview, where as, you know, other people in my class didn't, because I had made those connections. I'd worked hard to kind of put myself into a position to where I was able to get in front of that individual. So for me, you know, and you know, to even back it up a step, how I ended up getting into Ohio State was all through networking as well. You know, obviously I had to have the GMAT scores, I had to have the GPA, but, you know, I had connected with professors at West Virginia who put me into contact with former students who went to Ohio State, who then put me into contact with people at the university who I started building that relationship with early to help me with my interview process, help me kind of get my foot in the door. So it all goes back to, you know, the technical skills, the GPA, you know, your GMAT scores, all that stuff is important. But if you don't have the opportunity to put yourself in front of someone to show them those skills, you're never going to get your foot in the door. So, you know, it's just making those connections. You know, I've utilized the West Virginia, you know, alumni network. I've utilized, you know, the Ohio State alumni network. I've utilized, you know, past employers, past people. So that to me is one of the things. Start talking to your professors. Tell them what you want to do. See if they know people that have gone in the same direction that you're looking to do, and just reach out to them and see, you know, if they're willing to talk to you. Some might be, some might not be able to, but you just have to make that connection and try to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I guess I could piggyback off that as well. I completely agree with the networking standpoint, and also the value of an institution like West Virginia, and even Jamie said Ohio State. You know, you have people who are extremely proud to be graduates of these types of schools, big public schools, and they're everywhere. So, for example, they're all over New Jersey. They're in New York City. You know, you have like, you know, sports watching meetups and all sorts of different things that come about where you find yourself across the table from someone and you're like, oh, what year did you graduate from? You know, what did you major in? When was the last time you were down on campus? And then all of a sudden, like you develop some sort of communication or potential friendship or whatever you want to call it with these with people through these mechanisms. But similar, right out of school, I got my first job through networking. I don't even think LinkedIn makes me sound like a fossil, but I'm not sure LinkedIn was even around. So it was Facebook. And I was persistent. So it was like, I was hitting up whoever I could find who was West Virginia, had connections to West Virginia. And, somebody had responded in the Baltimore Morgan Stanley office, and they were looking to rapidly expand. So she put me kind of in front of the line. So that was right from the beginning, from a networking standpoint. But like as well, like Jamie said, I think all the stuff that goes on the resume is important too, because without that, you can't, you might, and the network can only get you so far as well. You have to put in the work, and that's what I found. I didn't get every job through my current one or the one after that through a networking type of move. It was more just a advancement based on the skill set that I brought into it. So I would say whatever you can take care of that's in front of you while you're networking, in terms of grades, extracurricular activities, internships, even if there's small projects for people that that are in industries that you're interested in, even if they're unpaid and you have the ability to do that, that's something that you could then take and you can talk to somebody about it. Because I ran into the concern of when I graduated, what am I going to talk to except for about, these classes that I took or whatever the case may be. But if you did a small project for someone for a month, you had an internship for, one semester, and then you have some projects or extracurricular activities on campus, then you have all of a sudden you have like a core of things that you can bring into a conversation. And like I said before, like once you get into a room with someone, they'll show interest in something and you might end up talking about something that you didn't even realize going into it. And that might be the difference maker of getting a job. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any more details to add to that? Okay, if not, I think we can go on to the next question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Can you discuss some of the typical career trajectories for early talent within your organization? And whoever wants to start is welcome to chime in first.
I think I'll jump in and kick this one off. So I think the really valuable aspect of working for a company like MVB is, how quickly they grow, how quickly they can change, all of those different aspects. For example, when I arrived at MVB 5 years ago, they were kind of considering themselves a small community bank. And now 5 years later, they are really pushing, viewing themselves more as a national presence and more of, a smaller, medium-sized bank. They're involved in all sorts of different lines. And that ultimately leads to a lot of different trajectories where, like I mentioned at the start, I came in as a financial analyst basically to help with the budget. But since arriving at MVB, I've been able to be involved with the processes that I manage now, but also different business lines like the presence that MVB has in FinTech and being, kind of the bank behind some of the bigger financial clients that aren't truly banks, whether it's, Credit Karma on that side or like a cryptocurrency, that piece. So I get to work on projects with a lot of cool pieces from that front. And some people that have started in our department kind of move over into like a FinTech vertical, things like that. But then, you can continue working in FP&A, and that's kind of where I've, found my interests being, find that the most exciting. But then also people have started in our department and moved into more of like on the loan side, and whether it be like ultimately becoming a lender because they got their foot in the door through there, or working in the credit department and kind of the evaluation of everything on, up front. I think that kind of the key that, Ryan and Jamie both were making there was that the more relationships you develop can help you get that first job, but that's also the case like once you get into your organization, that being able to communicate, work with people in different projects leads to a lot of different opportunities that, you know, may not be finance specific, but they're kind of finance adjacent. And I think that, you know, it really leads to a lot of good opportunities in different organizations.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, you know, in my last company, you know, we had a small FP&A department, and I had kind of, you know, been rising up a little bit in there, but because it was such a small department, there was really nowhere for me to kind of promote within. However, you know, I was kind of, you know, they noticed my you know, skill set. They noticed that, like, okay, you know, he's got some, you know, maybe some potential. You know, kind of what Coleman was saying, the FP&A or finance grounding really opens you up to a lot of different opportunities, because my CEO at my last company was like, hey, we can't promote you within FP&A unless somebody were to leave. And that's not the case, you know. But there's an opportunity in our demand planning team, where it's very analytical, it's forecasting, it's similar to budgeting, but you're looking at it more from a product standpoint than a financial standpoint. So by having the analytical skills in the finance world, I plugged right into that role. And now it opened me up to, okay, now I'm in a managerial position. I'm getting to learn new things, take on new skill sets, which then segued into my current role at Rockbridge. So, you know, if you start out in, you know, finance, if you prove yourself there, you have other opportunities to go, whether it's more of, you know, Coleman's role like at a bank where everything is finance adjacent, or even where I was actually working in, you know, talking about product, you know, where I'm meeting with the merchandising teams to say, what product are we going to forecast for next month? So it really does open a lot of doors.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think one of the best ways to enter into PNC specifically is through our development programs. So like I mentioned, I actually went through our HR development programs. And they typically range from about a year to up to 3 years, depending on the line of business. And it's a really great opportunity for you to be able to learn about, you know, a general line of business and the different roles and sectors that you could possibly be in. So for me specifically, I currently recruit for our retail programs. So there's a lot of, you know, students who are or recent graduates who might have finance backgrounds or even have sales backgrounds. But, you know, we're really open to a lot of different backgrounds as long as you're really interested and passionate about it. And it gives the associates an opportunity to rotate through various areas within our retail space to really be able to get a better feel for what you like and honestly, even what you don't like. Even for me, it was the same thing. You know, there's a lot of different moving parts within HR. So it was really, you know, figuring out about what area I really liked and what area I was really interested in being in. And then also figuring out, I'm not really interested in that. So, you know, I think I'll kind of stay away from that area. And then it also gives us a great opportunity to expose you to, you know, just financial services in general. So, you know, even though I was in HR, I learned a lot more about the retail sector. I learned more about, you know, some of the products that we have and services that we are providing, so that we really have a greater background and knowledge of what's going on in the bank overall and connecting with a lot of different partners across the organization. The great thing about also starting the development program is you're starting with a cohort. So you have, you know, people that you're, you know, coming in with that have, you know, similar backgrounds to you. And it's a great way to connect, especially if you're like going to a new city like I did. I'm not from Pittsburgh, but moved here. And so, of course, it was a little stressful and, you know, nerve wracking at first to kind of move to a completely new city without knowing anybody. But you know, coming in with that cohort definitely helped me out and helped me to grow and, of course, connect and network with other people that they might have known already. And then it gives great exposure even after the program. So I've met so many people in my short amount of time by being in the program, including senior leaders, because they're really invested in our growth and our development. And I've seen so many program alumni, that graduated before I did. And, they might have been in HR, but they've actually gone into finance, or they've gone into AMG. So even if you might start in one program and you start working in that area, post-program for a couple of years, there's definitely that opportunity to grow into other areas, whether that, be going into a front office position or going from front to back. There's endless opportunities, but I know for me personally, that's my own little shameless plug, is I definitely encourage students who have a general interest, like you kind of know what you want to do, but you're not 100% sure. I would definitely look into development program opportunities. That way, it gives you a greater knowledge of what possibilities that there are within whatever you're interested in, and what those career trajectories can look like, because there's really not one specific path. It's really hard to, at least now, in the past, of course, there used to be like that, you go here, then here, then here, but it's really not like that anymore. It's all over the place. Nobody has that same career path. And I've definitely learned that, while even being here. So I think that's another great way for, early career professionals to get in the door too.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Let's make a couple of points on that, if you don't mind. We can move on if you want. Actually, I think they discussed. So I was just going to say, in general, from a career trajectory or pivoting standpoint, one thing that makes it easier for folks like us is a lot of people don't like change. So, once you're people get comfortable in their career, in their positions. And I think everyone that spoke before me kind of basically highlighted this, but just to make it crystal clear, you're working on something, you're in a department, and there might be a restructuring of, between management. There might be someone who's needed to do something else, to take on more, that it gives you more exposure to senior management or whatever. And maybe it's open to a certain number of people, but I found a lot of folks don't want to take it on. They are concerned that they might fail or something like that. And I don't think that that's, typically from my experience, that's not something that has hurt my career. It's something that helps you gain experience. So I would say that, raise your hand when we'll think about it and see if it fits into maybe something that you want, or broadening your skill set and your experience to allow you to get to the next level and have more opportunities. But when those opportunities arise, I would always definitely be one to jump on them, and jump on them quickly too, before other people do. That's it though. Thanks.
Great, thank you. For our next question, there have been significant technological advances over the last several years, and I think we've seen an even quicker transition with the COVID-19 pandemic within the industry. How do you think further technology advances will impact your job or the organizations in which you work? And anyone can kick this one off as well.
So I'll speak a little bit about this. I have started to kind of dabble in, and working with our IT department regarding, data warehousing, Tableau data visualization, and, items like that. And it's something that, I had zero experience in until, about a year or so ago, whenever we started, kicking off some of these projects. And one of the things that has really, kind of fascinated me is the ability to automate some of the modeling that, goes into our jobs. So, if I have to reforecast every single month, being able to understand how to utilize the, a data warehouse system to pull in actuals automatically versus having to type in all of the actuals by hand. It, saves a ton of time. It creates, less chance of error and those types of things. So, that's starting to become more prevalent from what I can tell. And one of the things that I'll kind of suggest for everyone is to, whenever I was in school, I kind of glazed over some of that stuff. I'm like, I'm not a tech person. I'm not a big fan of, I'm not a computer, geek. I'm not big into that stuff. But what I found is having just a basic understanding of, okay, here's how a database is structured. Here's how things funnel into a database. Because I've been able to, cut down reporting time, at my previous job by, hours. And that's freed me up to do a lot of really cool projects and fun analysis. So what I would say is just open yourself up to learning about technology that might not be finance specific. Be willing to open your ears in your computer 101 class or whatever it is, because you might be able to say, hey, I can utilize a access database macro to cut down a manual process in a fraction of the time. So those types of things can be really beneficial. And a lot of the rest of it you'll learn on the site. You're not going to know your accounting system or how to utilize it until you actually get in, because some of the softwares are proprietary, or they could differ drastically between organizations. So I would just say, hey, be open to learning technology. Don't be afraid of it. And even if it's just a basic understanding of, got it, here's how you structure a database. Now I understand how information flows in and how I can utilize that information. Just be open to that, and you'll find efficiencies down the road that might not have ever been looked at before.
And kind of just jumping off of a lot of the points that Jamie made there. I guess reflecting a little bit, I think that a lot of my career trajectory to this point is based off a lot of the points that he made there. You have a lot of processes, a lot of pieces that he described of, like, when you join an organization, you learn their current processes, you learn all those pieces, their software, everything. But a lot of opportunities come from reimagining some of those processes, reimagining how it could be much more efficient. And that's really what I've been working on a lot of my major projects probably during this last year, is focused on those efficiency points of, somebody logs into the system every single day, pulls, 10 reports, sends it out to people. It takes 5 minutes. And it's like, yeah, but 5 minutes every single day turns into days within the year. And, when, with just a little bit of knowledge, because very similar to Jamie, I'm not a computer science person, but like just understanding databases, how that works, general mapping principles of like what we would need. We're currently going through a process of doing that on our daily reporting process. We're going to take that same concept, do it on a monthly reporting process, where some of these processes, even if you're not manually creating the report in Excel, even if you're, exporting it from a system, gathering PDFs, whatever, reimagining that, understanding, technology from, if I could just get this one system to flow to something else without me having to manually do it all, how much time could that save? And I've worked on a variety of processes where we're trimming it from a process of building reports every month that takes maybe a couple days total, to basically you have to go through and validate the information because you've created a more efficient process. So that's, I think to a lot of Jamie's point there, I think that just becoming familiar with some of those aspects of your business class where, no, it's not finance specific, but, just understanding how these things work. And then as you learn different processes in your internships or, entry jobs that you kind of understand that, well, this is how they've done it. But if we just made these small tweaks, we could be much more efficient. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll just chime in on one thing, a couple things there. It's just that question made me think of something that when I was working at AIG, we did a lot of stress testing. There was a lot of modeling, which is on top of kind of the stuff that, you start with the FP&A stuff. You can break that down into like a cash flow forecast, and then, you can get stress testing and things like that. Like what if there was a massive hurricane on the East Coast, or a catastrophe somewhere? What would that mean? How fast would we have to pay something out? And what do our assets look like versus our liabilities? So that was something that, just from a business standpoint, that was part of my job at AIG. So I worked with, on the asset side with a lot of people in the investment management side of things. And then on the liability side at an insurance company, it was with a lot of actuaries, a lot of smart people. And I remember one guy who I was working with, he told me that his previous job, he worked at a hedge fund, and he was doing like machine learning. So, and he said he automated himself out of the job. So basically, he was so good at automating his job that he was able to come in and work and like press a button, and it pretty much did everything. I mean, it was pretty amazing to hear. So that's just like, that's not really how it works across the board, but I thought that was interesting. But I would say that just in general, from my personal experiences, I'm also not like a developer or coder, but I think it's very important to be able to work with these departments. I do a lot of projects from, you might get a project in a larger institution, and you get like a group of people that's like a committee for the project, or some sort of working group for the project. And you'll have like a developer, maybe the vendor, and then the business user. So the business user has to organize, prioritize, kind of lead the, what's important, and be able to lay out what you need, so that the developing side knows exactly what they're building. So I've done that plenty of times over the course of my career. And I would say that once you become intimately familiar with a system, for better or worse, everyone comes to you for questions on that system. And that's a good thing to have for some job security, but also you get a lot of random questions about things that might not even have to do with what you're doing. And that's still the case today with something that a big multi-year initiative that we have built out at Apollo. So having that kind of that niche expertise in working with proprietary systems, or systems that are onboarded with your company, and taking the time to understand them. And just if you're continuing your career, you will, outside of like Excel and Python and things like that people might pick up or understand, there's a lot of proprietary stuff that it's new to everyone once it comes on. So you can learn it, and you could put the time in and be that go-to person. And that, in my experience, has been very helpful.
Okay, Deja, did you have anything to add to that? No. All right. So want to ask Harry his question here, but really quickly, just wanted to make a comment about all the insights that they just brought up. Many of you might want to consider what minor would be a good addition to your major. And the college has minors in management information systems, as well as business data analytics and cybersecurity. So as you're thinking about what is my finance career might look like and where do I want to go, a really good thing to think about is which minor or a couple of minors might augment my major to make me be better positioned to kind of move around within these organizations. So just wanted to throw that out there, something you could talk to the CCD about or your academic advisor. But it's, I think, a really good, useful tool, and it kind of takes the intimidation out of learning those technologies. If you can get exposure to it in class, it might be less scary to approach it or volunteer for stuff in the workplace. All right, Harry, what was your question?
First of all, thank you. Okay. First of all, thank you so much for coming and being willing to talk about your careers and everything. I really appreciate it. Secondly, my question, in most situations from what I've seen with classmates and alumni that I've spoken to, generally they've had internships with other companies that get their foot, like, which gets their foot in the door for when they graduate, and from there they get a job, and from there they keep advancing, whether in that career or they move to another company. Um, have you ever seen anyone in situations where they aren't able to get internships by the time they graduate? And if so, if you have any coworkers in that position, what did they do to get to where they are? How did they become your coworkers at that company you're working at or had been working at?
I guess I'll go first. Definitely, obviously internship experience is great. There might not be an internship out there for everyone. Timing might not work out. You could always explore internship experience that's not related to exactly where you might want to go, but it shows that you're working and it gives you experience in general in the professional environment. So that's actually the route I went. I didn't have any fancy finance internship. I told you I was a marketing major. So I struggled to find those things as well. I ended up doing some sort of management internship at actually like Bridgestone Firestone, like so I got managerial skills and going back to that customer service and things like that. So that was for what it was, a small little kind of help in maybe getting my first job, but maybe even without it, I would have been able to do it as well. So you definitely, if you can't get an internship, I wouldn't say that you're out of the game by any means. There's plenty of different ways to go about getting to where you are. I think we talked about a lot of them, whether it's networking or doing things around campus or taking on projects, or, I mean, if it came down to it, you could literally get together with some students and do an analysis and try to solve a problem. Take a Harvard business article and try to dissect it and then put it on your resume. I mean, there's plenty of ways to show that you I think have experience through projects, through schoolwork and other things that can replace or be an alternative to having real world internship experience. So I don't think that if you do not happen to get an internship, or you don't have time, or whatever the case may be, I think that there's plenty of other ways.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll add to that, one of the things my former company used to do a lot of is they would hire in individuals coming out of school in an entry-level customer service role. And they had aspirations of being on the marketing team, designer team, or even demand planning or finance. But the company utilized that customer service role as saying, okay, we can bring someone in who might not have the fantastic internship or background, get them trained, get them experience, and if they show potential, promote them on up. And so what I would say is, hey, if you don't have an internship, do some research about the company. Say, okay, do they have a career path that is similar to that? I think it was mentioned earlier that the leadership training programs, those types of things, do some research and say, okay, what are the type of candidates that they normally take, and what is the career path afterwards? Because, for a lot of companies, they also realize, hey, there's a lot of good students who come out of school who might not have an internship. That's okay. We'll give them a shot. It might not be where they want to be, but it'll be a pathway to it. So, do some research on the companies, because there are going to be career paths, even if, hey, your first role might not be that exciting, but you're in the door. And if you show potential, most companies are more than willing to move you on and promote you to where you want to be.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And another thing I would add is even trying to attend more conferences, based on your possible interest. Or I know like a lot of companies now, even I know we're doing various like conferences just so that you can learn more about the company. It's a great way to get your foot in the door, to network with other individuals, just to get that initial exposure. So I think that's something that will be helpful. And then as well, just simply using, your experiences within school. So if you're in various organizations, like build off of those experiences, get some leadership positions. And, that's a great way to kind of expand in your resume and just add something else to it, besides whatever you do have in your normal schoolwork if you weren't able to get internship experience.
Yeah, I would just add one last thing, which is obviously with the pandemic and everything going on, although it's quite a bit better, unemployment's not great. Numbers are up now, so it's probably, you're not the only, if you can't get an internship, I know my firm has cut back a little bit, although they're still doing it, and probably others. I know a lot of companies that are frozen on hiring, so obviously they're not doing internships. So the reality of the world right now, or the country, is that there's less jobs and stuff to go around. That doesn't mean that you won't get them. It just means you have to work a little bit harder. So that might involve not having an internship. So I think employers who are responsible and understand what's going on in the economic environment right now probably will not give you a huge red mark if you don't have an internship.
All right, I know we're getting towards the end of time here for the session today, so we can open it up. If any students have questions, if you would like to type your questions in the chat, please feel free to do that. Or if you would like to ask your questions verbally, like the question we just had, we'll give you just a second. And if anyone wants to raise their hand or chime in to ask a question, please feel free to do so. Well, if we don't have anything that anyone is comfortable asking right now, we always could just go through the panel and see if you all have any one last piece of parting advice to provide to our students as they, and again, most of these are sophomores, as they sort of embark on the summer between sophomore and junior year and beyond.
Sure, I can kind of take it off. So, one piece of advice is to not kind of pigeonhole yourself into one very specific career path right now. And the reason I'm saying that is my career path is kind of zigged and zagged all over the place. And it's gotten me to where, I'm extremely happy with where I'm at. So, I had to, be open to new opportunities and to new things. Kind of what I was mentioning with technology. You have to be open to that stuff. You can't kind of say, I'm only going to take finance classes. I'm only going to do this. Because you might get into a position where you need to have some extra skills, or you need to have a leadership ability, or you need to have technology skills. So I would say, keep your end goal in mind, but know that your path to get there is going to be not a straight line. So be willing to take on projects that you think, that's not exactly what I want to do, but it's interesting, or an internship. It's like, all right, if I really want to work in the stock market, but I've got a corporate finance internship, you're still going to gain some really good skills. So be open to new experiences, take some classes that, interest you, that might not be finance specific, but are going to give you some skills that are going to help you down the road. Because it's going to be able to, you'll be able to speak more broadly on different topics and connect with people within the organization and network better. And so that's just kind of my piece of advice. That's one of the things I wish I did more back in the day. But just be open to doing new and different things with keeping that end goal in mind.
Yeah, I would say if I had $1 for every job that I applied for that didn't call me back, I probably could retire right now. So, there's a lot of ups and downs, and it might seem at certain times like you just can't get something or whatever. And that's not going to be the case in the long run. Things happen very quickly. They come out of left field or different types of perspectives. So don't give up. Cast a wide net. Those general, I think what Jamie said, the more qualities you can add, I pursued an MBA part-time to kind of broaden, because I was zigzagging as well. And I think that, and I messaged a little bit with Kellen before this, and one comment I had was, no one's going to manage your career for you. People will be there to guide you, help you, talk to you, and maybe even tell you what you can and can't do. But at the end of the day, it's up to you what you're going to do. So, many people, just similar to what I said about not getting an interview, many people have told me, Ryan, you'll never be able to do, work at a hedge fund. Like, come on, get real. And people meaning like recruiters and things like that. So they're not right. Just take everything with a grain of salt, and the relationships that are genuine that about, leverage those, and people that that try to get in the way or say things that might get you down. It's not personal. Just keep moving, and everything should work out. Thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And I think to build on, some of the things that both of them noted, I mean, if there were two key takeaways that I feel like were presented here today, the first being networking. I think it's important to try to meet as many people, get in front of as many people as possible, attending events, just creating some kind of memory. So when your name pops up, you're applying, trying to get positions, that they remember that 5-minute interaction. And then on the other side of that, I think it's just trying to get as many experiences as you can. It doesn't have to be an internship. It just has to be able to show, that you can demonstrate working hard. You can demonstrate, some of these different skills that you learn in school. It could just be projects. It can be a variety of different things, but it's putting those two pieces together, casting a wide net to try to get as many opportunities as you can, meet as many people as you can, and then just having something to talk about and show that, I've experienced this or that. It's like, I think those are the two main pieces. Thanks for having me as well.
And I would definitely echo everything that Jamie, Ryan, and Coleman said. One thing I will say for those of you who might actually have the opportunity to intern this summer, I would say to really, utilize that experience as much as possible, and, reach out to as many people as you can. It really makes a difference. And then I would even say, like, don't be afraid to, give your opinions and, provide input while you're there during the summer. That's a lot of the reasons why they're giving you these projects. Like, they want to hear from you. They want to see what kind of experiences you've had, or how they can, make the different processes or products better, just based off of your experience. So, that's definitely one piece of advice that I would give if you do have an internship. But I would say if you don't right now, again, just like they said, doing your research now, trying to gain exposure in any way that you can, will definitely set you up for the next recruiting season. And thank you all, and hope you all have a great rest of your day too.
All right. Thank you all so much for taking the time to speak to the group today. We are perfectly on time here, so we really appreciate it. If everyone can do a little I always like the reactions of the clapping for, I always use the reactions on Zoom, but we can give physical claps as well. So thank you all so much. And any of you students who have learned something today that you want to sort of take the next level, you can meet with Kellen or me. Anyone on our team will be able to help you kind of parse through all the great information you've received today and see how you can sort of utilize it in your own search. So please reach out to us if you have any questions.
Thanks everyone again for your time today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.